time ago, our good bishop began a conversation around why modern marriages are not working, and began to answer that question and to help us find solutions to make modern marriages work. And I would want, by the grace of God, to pick that conversation and, throw in one little thought, and hopefully it will help us. You must bear with me, because of all the messages I've ever preached since I began preaching, this is the message I've wrestled with so much in trying to prepare. And so if I look like I'm getting confused, bear with me as I wrestle through this sermon. But I trust that God will bless us. But for starters, I want you for a moment to imagine something. I want you for a moment to imagine being in a world where everyone gets along with everyone just fine. Can we imagine that? For a moment, if possible, make sure your phone and everything valuable, you're holding it tightly, and then close your eyes. Just close your eyes. After you've made sure you have all your valuables, close your eyes. And imagine with me. Imagine in your circle of friendships, if there was no conflict, if there was no misunderstanding, if there was no jealousy, if there was no quarreling, if there was no arguments, no foul play, no backbiting, no betrayal, no dishonesty, no false promises, no hypocrisy, no insults, no tribalism. Open your eyes. Those who had closed. How many of us would love to be in a world like that? Okay, yeah, quite a good number of us. Now, those of us who didn't raise your hand, I don't know which kind of world you want to be in. Allow me to ask you a question related to that. The reality is that many of us, we are not living in a world like that. So here comes the question, and I want you to discuss with your neighbor. Hopefully you're sitting next to somebody you like, all right? If not, as I normally say, we're in a free country. You can move, you can exchange. So I want to ask, what do you think is the greatest hindrance to us realizing that world where everybody gets along just fine with everyone? What do you think is the greatest hindrance in us realizing that world? Turn to your neighbor, discuss, use important words, use heavy words, 20 marks. For a minute, I'm giving you a minute of my time. So please make use of it. Good, talk to your neighbor. What do you think is the biggest challenge? You should be concluding your argument now. Allow your neighbor to talk. You should be concluding your submission. So allow your other learned friend to talk. All right. My suspicion is this, and I call it divine suspicion, that there are as many challenges to people getting along as there are people on earth. That for the 6-point-something billion people on earth, we have 6-point-something billion challenges to us getting along. Because you would think that because we are all human and we are not, animals, that we would get along. I'll ask the people in South Africa who experienced apartheid, from fellow human beings. You would think if we are from, the same country and the same tribe, we would get along. If we were all from the same tribe, did you know that the Tutsis and the Hutus are actually the same tribe, but they didn't get along, same country? Maybe if we were from the same family, same father, mother. How many of us come from families where siblings don't, how many of you know of families where brothers and sisters don't get along? They can't see eye to eye. You know those families? It's not your family, the other family. Maybe if all of us were born again and we were in church and we were speaking in tongues, then we would get along. How many of us know brothers in another church, not this one, another church, who don't get along well, yet they are born again. How many of us know those people? All right, quite a number of us. Maybe if we were all pastors and we are anointed and we are used of God, then we would get along well. But friends, allow me to submit to you, I know pastors in this city of Nairobi who don't get along well with each other, yet they speak in tongues more than all of you. Am I the only one who knows of such pastors? Now, I believe there are hundreds of reasons why people, find it a challenge to get along with each other. And so my job today is not to try and resolve all of them. My job today is to shine God's word on this issue and this challenge, and hopefully God will help us appreciate how we can get along with each other in the different interpersonal relationships that we have. Husband, wife, wife, husband, father, children, children, father, mother, children. All those relationships, we'll throw them inside there because we are talking about family. Today I want us to have a conversation about a major decision. Somebody say major decision. A major decision that everybody who is in any relationship, any interpersonal relationship, a major decision that you constantly make, you always make on a constant basis. You always make this decision. It's a decision that many times, most of us are not aware we are making. My hope is that today we are going to be more conscious of that decision, and it will begin to impact our relationship. Because if you make this decision right, it will help you to thrive in your relationship instead of striving in your relationships. And so, allow me to take us to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians is a letter that was written by the Apostle Paul to the Christians in the city of Corinth. And chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians is typically known as the chapter of love. The chapter of love. And so, quite a number of things are said there regarding love. And most of us, probably you've heard this chapter being read in a wedding. Probably it was your wedding or it was somebody else's wedding. Yesterday we had a wedding for one of the congregants in this church, and Reverend Oscar read that chapter. Was it Reverend Ken? Yeah, he's the one who read, and Reverend Oscar preached from there. And so it's a common chapter, and I want us to look at it. Now, it's an interesting chapter because most of it may not be easy to practice, but it makes sense. Hello. Most of it may not be easy to practice, but it makes sense. And it's easy to see how the different aspects of love that have been described in 1 Corinthians 13, how they contribute, how they can help us to improve in our relationships generally. I mean, husband, wife, husband, father, mother. Father, mother is the same as husband and wife. Okay, not necessarily sometimes in some cases. Children, parents. I mean, these aspects described in 1 Corinthians 13 help us, and you can see how they can help us. And allow me to say something about love. Hello. Love is the posture that epitomizes healthy relationships. You cannot define healthy relationships in any context without talking about love the way 1 Corinthians 13 talks about love. Anything less than that is not love. It's excitement or anything else. It's my feelings, but not love. But then, and also allow me to suggest to us, it is this serious, that love not only epitomizes healthy relationships, but love epitomizes true Christianity. Somebody say true Christianity. You know, friends, if I were given the task to evaluate the Christianity of people, if I was given a tender to evaluate people's Christianity, if it is fake or genuine, I would not waste my time with how much you pray. I would not waste my time with how much Bible you know. I would not waste my time with how much, you sing in the church. I would not waste my time with how much you serve in the church. I would go for how you relate with people around you. I would want to know how you relate with your husband. I would want to assess how you relate with your wife. I would want to assess how you relate with your house help. Then I will know if you're truly born again. Good morning. Because Jesus said, then shall they know if you are my disciples, that you are my disciples. If you, John 13:35, if you have love for one another. And the love he was talking about is a love we are about to break down in 1 Corinthians 13. Now, most of 1 Corinthians 13 makes sense and is beautiful until you come to verse 7. Verse 7. Mambo inaharibika. Because verse 7, it doesn't sound very realistic. Beautiful, yes. Romantic, yes. But realistic? Practical? No. In fact, it seems the opposite of what normal, rational people do. But in this verse, Paul is trying to share one of the most powerful ideas for anyone who intends to have healthy relationships with people around them. One of the most powerful. And allow me to tell you something, good people. Your chances of succeeding in life are greater when you have relational intelligence. Ask your neighbor, are you relationally intelligent? If you've been asked that, please try and look intelligent. So Paul is giving us Paul is giving us a very important idea. And so let's jump into it. 1 Corinthians 13. Let's look at it. It says in verse 1, I'm going to read from the NIV. It says, if I speak in tongues, the tongues of men and angels, and I do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy, and I can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am zero. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship, that I may boast, but do not have love, I am nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. And so verse 7, listen to verse 7. I will read it first in the NIV, and then I will read it in the Living Bible. It says, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Listen to it in the Living Bible. It says, if you love someone, is there anybody here who loves someone? Think about the people. If you're sitting next to the person you love, just tell them it is you that verse is talking about. If you love someone. Listen to what it says. If you love someone, you will be loyal to them no matter the cost. Do you think you still love that person? It says, you will always believe in them. You will always expect the best of them. You will always stand your ground in defending them. Okay, turn to them again and say, I love you like that. Goodness. See, the first 6 verses make a lot of sense. Love is patient. Love is kind. Who wouldn't want to be in a relationship where people are patient with you? Who wouldn't want to be in a relationship where people are kind to you? Love is patient. No one wants to be in a relationship where it's not boastful and it's not envious. None of us wants to be in a relationship with somebody who is arrogant or arrogant. None of us wants to be in such a relationship. It says it does not dishonor others. We know pride is bad for relationship. We don't want to be in a relationship where we are disrespected. It is not self-seeking. Awesome. No one wants to be in a relationship with somebody who is selfish. Or is there anyone? I'm assuming. Are there people here who want to be in a relationship with somebody who is not patient? We need to pray for you. And then this one is, I'm suspicious all the men will say amen to this one. It says, it does not keep a record of wrongs. Everyone would want to be in a relationship where, some of people here can make very great history teachers. Because if something happened, they go back to 92, 3rd of August, you did this to me. Say, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. That is, it does not focus on the negatives. It looks for opportunity for the good of the relationship. You see, all these are fantastic. And it's easy to see how they can contribute towards healthy relationships. And we are grateful to Paul, Apostle Paul, for giving us such a fantastic list. In fact, I would suggest, if you know anyone who is about to get married, or they are planning, or they have begun to date, buy a card and write that list for them and tell them this is a good list for you to practice with whoever you're falling in love with. Fantastic. But then Paul gets to verse 7, and then he takes one little word in the NIV. He takes one little word, always. And then he combines this word with 4 other little words to drive a specific point. Listen to it. It says, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. In the Revised Standard Version, it says, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Now take a moment and think about it. Doesn't that sound a little impractical? Doesn't it sound in some instances even dangerous? Believes all things, even when there is evidence, to the contrary, that this man has been doing extra. I should believe, I should trust, I should bear with this. Isn't that hiding from reality? Isn't that what codependent people do? So for the next few minutes, allow me to try and explain to you what Paul is getting at. And then we will come back to that verse and read it with a fresh pair of lenses. Now, in every relationship, somebody say relationships. In every relationship, you have begun to date, you are husband and wife, or you have begun to work somewhere, you're beginning to relate with people there. In every relationship, at some point along the journey of that relationship, you'll begin to discover gaps. Somebody say gaps. Gaps between what was expected, what you expected of that relationship, what you expected of the people you're relating with, and their behavior. You begin to discover gaps. Gaps. It's like buying clothes online. I don't know how many of us have tried buying clothes online. And when they are delivered, when they are online, they look amazing on the models. They look amazing. When they are delivered and you try to put them on, you are like, is this the same clothes? Chances are the problem is not the cloth or the model. Chances are the problem, we will not say who the problem is, but let's move on. You said you will be here by 4 p.m., but now it's 5 and you have not called. Gaps. I shared with you my secrets. And then, a few weeks later, I am seeing my story shared as a prayer request in a WhatsApp group of another church. Gaps. I lent you money and I told you I really need this money by the end of the month. So please, and you said, no, don't worry. They have even signed the check. They're just waiting for the manager to approve. So I'll pay you back. And now it is 1 year since you promised to pay me back. Gaps. At some point in every relationship, there's going to be a gap between what was promised and what we were led to expect and reality. It can be as deep as the expectation that that other person will keep their marriage vows, or it could be as fundamental as, keeping time when we are meeting for a date. Now, here is where that major decision I talked about comes. Here's where it comes. Every time there's a gap, every time a gap shows up, you are pushed and you're forced to make a decision. And many times, you're forced to make a decision between two things. Number one, you're forced to make a decision between believing the best. Somebody say, believe the best. Say it again, believe the best. Or you're forced to choose to assume the worst. Somebody say, assume the worst. Okay, let's say it again. Believe the best. All right, let's do it again. Assume the worst. One more time. You're helping me lose weight. One more time. All right. You can make a very good choir. Clap for yourself. We are forced to choose between believe the best. And every time a gap shows up in a relationship, in our mind, we go to a certain place. And it starts with our mind, not with what you say or what you do. You quickly go there. The moment you realize there's a gap between what was promised and what is being, then the behavior, you quickly go to the place where you either choose to assume the worst or believe the best. When it's taking too long for them to repay that money, you either choose to believe the best. Say, hey, maybe business is hard. Maybe, he's not received his check. Maybe he has other people who owe him, and so he's taking time to pay. I'll just wait and pray for them. You believe the best. Or you can choose to assume the worst. Ooh-wee! This is a con man now. Assume the best, believe the worst. Or maybe you know a sister whom you had some conversation on Sunday with here in church. And you talked and you clearly are sure you know each other. And then you see them walking on the streets of Nairobi. And you wave at them frantically, hoping they will respond. And then they don't respond. What do? You can choose to believe the best and say, maybe there's a lot going on in her mind. Maybe her mind is far. I'll just remind her on Sunday when I see her that I saw her in town. Or you can assume the worst. Bure, maringo. Ndio maana hajapata chali. Believe the best. So let me ask you a question. When there's a gap between your expectation and their behavior, do you tend to believe the best or do you tend to assume the worst? As soon as you get that text message from your husband saying, I'm going to be late at work today, honey. Do you believe the best? Hey, my husband is hardworking. Probably, they say hard work is rewarded with more work. And so maybe, he's really working hard in the office. And so let me pray for him to get home safely. Or do you assume the worst? Yuko na nani? Amepitia wapi? I wish I had a tracker for his car. Believe the best, assume the worst. Now, some of you are beginning to lose me. Let's make it a little more uncomfortable. Some of you are saying, Pastor, wait. Let me come up there and tell you my story. How, out of my naivety, my husband or my wife took advantage of me. I know we have all sad stories because I listen to sad. That's my work as a pastor. Me and my wife, we do a lot of crisis counseling. Sometimes we stay up to 3 o'clock at night with couples, just talking about their issues. And so I appreciate that you have a sad story. But there's something I want you to hear today. I want you to hear something today, despite your situation. I'm not belittling your situation. I want you to hear something. And I'm not justifying certain behaviors. Far be from it. Here's what I want you to hear. When you find people that are in a functional relationship, when you find people that are having a relationship that is happening, how many of us know couples, a couple or two who they've been married, they look happy, their relationship looks functional. How many of us know such couples? Have you ever come across such couples? Let me tell you a little secret about those couples. When you find such couples, functional relationship, I can guarantee you will not find that they do not have gaps. They have gaps. They have gaps. They have gaps. But I can guarantee you will also find that with their gaps, with the many gaps they have, what you'll find is that that functional relationship, that functional marriage is made of friends. Friends who have both decided and learned and made it a habit not to assume the worst, of each other's gaps, but to believe the best of each other's gaps. Good morning. Marcus Buckingham wrote a leadership management book called The One Thing You Need to Know. In that book, he talks about one vital, principle that can help you to become a successful person. And it deals with relationships. And in that book, he quotes a certain experiment that was done. So on one side, they took couples that had separated, divorced, their marriages had not worked, and they had not survived, they had not gone past the 10-year mark, and they interviewed them, and they did a research on them, and they asked them questions, and they discovered that there was one common denominator among all those couples, that when they were beginning to live together, when they got married, each of them had very unrealistic expectations of the other. They were living in a fantasy world, unrealistic expectations. And when reality struck, they could not stand it. And so they thought, if we look for those who have marriages that are happening, marriages that are functional, marriages that have survived the 10-year mark and are going strong, then the story would be different. So they got together, people who were having marriages that are working. They interviewed them. Say, what's been happening? How have you been surviving? They discovered even those who are having functional marriages, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years, even those have unrealistic expectations of each other. And they were confused. What's the difference? So they took a further test with these ones who have functional marriages. They asked the husband, rate yourself, and then rate your wife. And then they asked the wife, rate yourself, and then rate your husband when it comes to relationships. They discovered something amazing with this. They discovered that every time the husband would rate the wife higher than the wife would rate herself. And the wife would rate the husband higher than what the husband would rate himself. So they concluded, love is blind. Love is blind. They concluded love is blind. Because they said, after the experiment, they said, many times when people walk down the aisle to get married, or they fall in love with somebody, or they accept a proposal, many times they fall in love with an illusion. Somebody say illusion. Somebody say illusion. But don't say, ooh, 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 ah. They fall in love with an illusion. I can guarantee you, those who are married in this congregation, chances are, that day when you said I do, you are saying I do to an illusion. And then after honeymoon, you woke up to reality. And then, wow! When you begin to see the gaps in that marriage, when you begin to see the gaps in that marriage, and this illusion made you to get a conviction that this is the right person, and eventually you got married to them. Now, they also suggested that the person who continues to assume that their spouses possess strengths that their spouses don't think they have or don't think they possess will have a strong marriage. They were suggesting that you have to be a radical number one fan of your spouse. Hello? Regardless of how they are. Everybody else could know this is the oloi poloi of the village, but you as a wife, you should look at him and say, this is my hero. The guy could look like he cannot do anything, but you need to believe that he can do something. You could have a wife whom everybody's wondering now, what happened? Was somebody bewitched? But when you sit and talk about your wife, you must talk with strong conviction and say, I have married the most beautiful woman on earth. Even though everybody else is not willing to tell you the truth. When somebody believes that their spouse has extraordinary strength beyond what even the spouse believes, it's recipe for a good marriage. Recipe. When you believe in people, you see, that's a secret to attracting good relationships. That's the secret to succeeding in any sphere of life. Believe in the people who are around you. Believe the best and not just assume the worst. I must suggest to us here, before I conclude, that when my wife married me, Rahadia here, when she married me, I think she had a lot of illusions. Because I looked like a fine young man. I looked like, fine, sharp young man. I used to have a box head and it looked amazing. I suspect I had confused a few girls, I suspect. And so she got married to me. Now, this woman has endured and survived all sorts of gaps. And she married me when I was already a pastor. And even as a pastor, I had a lot of gaps. I mean, there are times I've done things. I mean, there are moments I've lost our money because of my own foolishness. But then she comes back and says, you're still my husband. Let's talk about this. There's a time I took, she was resigning from a place of work. She took all the benefits. And I told her, give me, I'll tell you where to invest. And I took that money and I put it in a Ponzi scheme. Nakumbuka zile vitu za sijui nani. Ilikuwa inaitwaje hizo vitu za pyramid scheme. And I put the money in the pyramid scheme. But she's still married to me. Because every time she would believe the best, she would say, this guy is adventurous. He's adventurous. He's not foolish. At some point, one day, he will take us somewhere. Another day, I convinced her, we put our money together, and then we plant mushrooms in our house. But she's still here loving me. I appreciate you, Janet. Thank you. She has chosen, but you know what? Even after she tells me, I still love you, but she says, we must sit down and talk. And I can tell you, those are very difficult conversations. I don't forget them because they go to 3 o'clock at night. We're just talking. Sometimes I cannot answer because he has asked me a difficult question. I'm hoping that something will happen. Somebody will scream outside, then we can run. I'm just hoping somebody save me from this. She's very tough, but it's called tough love. And she says, okay, you made a mistake. Let's now do it in a better way. Believe the best or assume the worst. Now, I want us to conclude because I sense that this verse 7 has the key to help certain relationships here. Relationships that have grown far apart. And there is hopelessness. There is no chance of those relationships recovering. I believe it holds the key. And for some of us, the only reason you're still in that marriage is because there are kids in that marriage. The only reason you're still in that marriage is because you believe God hates divorce. But the slightest chance you would take off. Some of us, we are part of families that you hate it when it's Christmas and you have to have a family come together because you can't stand your brother. You can't stand that sister of yours that always puts you down. I believe this verse as the key to how we can relate well with those people. And some of us are caught up in a cycle of negativity because of the gaps that you have experienced in the relationships that you have. And you've gotten to a place where you even rejoice when you hear your partner is in trouble or they have gotten into a situation. You're like, yes, he deserves it. Because there's so much negativity. I mean, you're caught up in arguments. And for some of us, you may win the argument, but you end up losing the most important relationship in your life. Because this choice that you have to make whenever there is a gap, it's your choice to believe the best or assume the worst. So listen carefully to this verse. Listen carefully to this verse. It says, verse 7, it says, it always protects. What does it protect? Love protects the relationship. I mean, you must come to a place where you're telling yourself, I am not looking for an opportunity to put something on the negative column. I'm always looking for, even though there's evidence, even though there's every reason why I should put something in the negative column, even though there is, I will rather choose to protect this relationship, and I will look for any reason to put something in the positive column. I'm going to keep looking for a way to keep our love alive. It always trusts. My first instinct when I see that SMS saying "dear" on my husband's phone will not be to always, look for assume the worst, but I will look for the most generous explanation. In fact, one of the conclusions those researchers came up with is that these couples who are having functional marriages, one of the habits all of them had is to have a very generous explanation for the behaviors of their spouses. For example, she is lazy. They would say, she's not really lazy. She likes to take her time. Another example, he is stubborn and very argumentative. No. He just has a strong conviction about his position. Believe the best, assume the worst. It always hopes. I am hopeful because there must be a good explanation. Hopeful, there's just something I don't know. Hopefully, he didn't mean to. Hopefully, I'm not going to give up hope until proven otherwise. And even when I'm proven otherwise, even when it's proven that there's infidelity in this marriage, even when it's proven that, they were lying to me, I will not quickly go to assume the worst. I will still try to believe that we can repair this. Even when I'm sitting, and I'm not saying that we don't sit down and have hard conversations with each other when there are gaps. We need to have hard conversations. But even when we are having those hard conversations, it should be with the attitude of believing the best, believing that something good can still come out of this relationship. I know this is a difficult gospel, and bear with me as I preach it. When we choose to assume the worst about the people in our lives, every time we go the negative direction, every time we assume the worst of them, we choose to go there, and we express it to them, we push them, and we contribute to the demise of a relationship. But every time, and the message we are constantly sending when we assume the worst and we express it, the message we are constantly sending is that you can never measure up no matter what. Now let me tell you something. There is no one, whether gifted, I don't care how gifted you are, if you operate in an environment where people don't believe in you, people oppress you, people talk negative about you, you cannot thrive. But take the most oloi person on earth, the worst character on earth, and bring him into an environment where there is acceptance, where there is belief, where they are constantly told, we believe in you, we believe you can do something. I can guarantee you they'll begin to change. And so when you believe the best, you create an environment of acceptance, and you'll be amazed. Now, I said earlier that yes, there must be hard conversations. And for some of us, because some of our gaps involve violence and involve abuse, you may need to probably separate yourself from that person. But even when you have separated yourself, what is going on in your mind? Are you just hoping that some trailer will crash him somewhere? Or that's assuming the worst. Or are you somewhere praying, oh God, that man, I believe there's something good inside of them. Would you remember them, touch them? Because I've sat down with men who've messed up their marriages. And I've sat down with some of them, and at some point they say, you know what, why did I do that to that woman? I should have known better. See, good people, chances are, the last thing the people who relate with you want to do for you is to disappoint you. The last thing they want to do is to disappoint you. Let me ask, how many of us have at one time or the other set out to do something good and then you are misunderstood? How many of us have ever been misunderstood? Hello? Quite a number of us. And I can guarantee you, chances are the people who have, you have gaps with in your relationship with them, and they have done some wrong things to you, chances are they didn't set out to really do. Some of them are evil, some of them are mischievous, but most of them, their intention was not really to hurt you. Just like you are misunderstood. One of the most powerful things you can do when there's a gap is to communicate a different message. Believe the best. I believe the best. I believe the best. Even when there's glaring evidence to the contrary. When you believe the best, this is what you're communicating, that our relationship is worth protecting. I trust you. I have hope for us. I will hold on to this as long as it is possible. Even before I hear your explanation, I'm considering you innocent until you're proven guilty. I choose to trust you. I may not understand the circumstances, and I choose to trust you until I can fully understand. And even when I get the real picture of what was happening, I will still choose to believe that something better can come out of it. Trust in relationship means accepting everyone, accepting the other person, issues and all. Now, the most thriving marriages are not the marriages that are devoid of challenges, are the marriages where there are challenges, but they have chosen to believe the best and not assume the worst of each other. I'll give you one more reason why you need to believe the best and not assume the worst of other people. I'll give you one more reason. How many of us have read the scripture that says, Jesus says, Luke 6:31, it says, do unto others what you would have them do. I know most of us, you've grown up believing do unto others before they do to you. All right? Or do unto others as they deserve to be done unto them. Or maybe, do unto others depending on how you feel. Or they make you feel. Or do unto others until you wear them down and push them away as far as possible. But Jesus says, do unto others. Now, allow me to suggest to us, all of us have got gaps. Turn to your neighbor, tell him I have gaps. I know you're putting on your best, Sunday best, and you look like you don't have gaps. Hello? Even the most handsome of men in this church, look around, who is the most handsome man in this church? Even the most, somebody has raised their hand. That person believes in themselves. They believe the best of themselves. That's a good thing. Even the most handsome man in this church has gaps. Hello? If you think I'm lying, if they are not married, marry them and then you will know they have gaps. The most beautiful girl in this church, you look at the way they walk and you're like, man, this is perfect. They have gaps, my brother. Marry at your own risk. They have gaps. Now let me suggest to us, because all of us have got gaps, what would you want people to do when they discover your gaps? What do you want people to do to you? Would you want them to be patient with you? Would you want them to still believe you? Would you, even when you make mistakes, how many of us have made mistakes in our lives? Would you want people to still believe in you and give you another chance? So why don't you want to do that to your partner? Why don't you want to believe the best and give them a chance? In as much as you may put conditions, but believe the best and give them a chance, you are quickly going to assuming the worst. Allow me to suggest to us that is exactly what God has done to us. That's exactly what God has done for us. We sang about reckless love of God. How God, surmounts everything to get to us. But did you know that God loves us regardless of how we are? Did you know that? Do you know how much God has put up with? You promise, Lord, I will never do that again. And you still do it. And you come to church on Sunday and say, God forgive me. And God forgives you. He puts up, because God, turn to your neighbor, tell him, God believes in the best of you. See, when God looks at you, he is not just seeing what you have been. He is seeing what you can become. He believes the best in you. He does not just assume the worst. That's why he still loves you. That's why he still loves you. He keeps protecting you, providing for you. In as much as you've been living a life that is not right before him, he still speaks to you. He still touches your heart. He still draws you to him because he believes in the best. And he's not just assuming the worst. The only time God will give up on you is when you die and go to hell and he can't reach you there. But as long as you're alive, it doesn't matter how messed up you are, God loves you. God loves you. If we are to ever live and love in the way God loves us, if we are to imitate God, and the essence of Christianity is to imitate God. If we are to imitate God, then we must begin to learn to embrace God's posture towards us as we posture towards others. We must learn to love them with the agape love that is in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 7. Always trust, always believe, always protect. May God help us. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word today. Thank you that you're reminding us that you love us unconditionally. And that you're challenging us to pass it on to those we relate with. You're challenging us to pass it on to our spouses, to our children, believing in the best and not just assuming the worst. You're challenging us to up our game in as far as relationships. God, a lot of this is difficult for most of us. We ask you to help us in your mercy. Lord, I pray for every couple that is in this congregation today, every married couple in this congregation, especially those that are in a space where the relationship is strained because of the gaps that are in that relationship. That you will not allow them to go down the spiral of negativity and end up breaking and end up falling apart. But that as they leave this service today, they will give love a chance. And they will give believing in the best of each other a chance. And that there will be willingness to sit down and approach things soberly. There will be willingness to admit where there is wrong and a willingness to help and walk with each other. And that there will be healing in the house. Oh God, that you will not allow those strained marriages here to go down the spiral of separation and divorce. And even those that are sitting in this congregation where divorce has already happened, separation has already happened, I pray that you'll begin to heal the hearts of your people. While our heads are bowed and eyes are closed, I want to pray for people who are saying, I'm already caught up in this circle of negativity because of the gaps I've experienced in the relationships around about me. People have done terrible things to me. Or, people have failed in the expectations I had towards them. And so I have this bitterness. I have this, I appreciate, Pastor, you've talked about believing the best, but I just can't bring myself to imagine. Now, I can think positively about that other person. There's bitterness, there's pain in my heart. I need healing. I need healing. I want to pray for you wherever you are. Just raise up your hand wherever you are. I want to pray for you. I can see those hands. Lord, thank you for these hands of men and women that have been caught up in a space of difficulty, a space where there is pain because they have been hurt because of gaps in the relationships they have opened themselves up to. Betrayal and backbiting and backstabbing and they can't bring themselves to the place of forgiving and the place of looking positively at the other person. Lord, I pray that you will begin to heal these hearts. You'll begin to heal these hearts and bring them to a place where they can begin to believe the best of the other person. I pray, heal them, because you're a healer. You're a good God, and have mercy on this. So I set them free in prayer from the spirit and the bondage of bitterness. And I release the spirit of love, the spirit of love, the spirit of love, the love of God to flood their hearts, to flood their minds, and to free them from the pain of the hurt that has come in their lives. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.